guys, today's a solo pod. And when I mean solo, like, is literally just me with a camera, um, and nobody else in the room. Um, crazy, crazy. This is I guess it's episode number 3. But yeah, today I got nobody in the studio, and shout out again to my boy Maz for allowing me to use this space until my space is ready. And guys, I kid you not, like, I can't wait to be filming in my home where I'm comfortable. You know, um, this podcast journey is going to be very, very interesting. It's a personal thing for me where I'm like, yo, I can't wait to do this. And it's actually the first 2 episodes that I recorded. If you guys have been tuning in, or if anybody in there, I had my boy Phil help me set up and everything, and um, it was kind of like a nice helping hand to have somebody in the room, um, somebody that was engaging with me and having conversation with me to help me like gather my thoughts and articulate what I'm trying to do with this. And so yeah, sitting here by myself today, having the camera pointed at my face, seems a bit different. But for some reason, I feel very much like there's somebody here. And hey, call it the Holy Spirit, call it God, call it whatever you want. It feels very much like, you know, I'm not doing this by myself. And that's all I need to know. That's all I need to know in order to do this. Yeah, I'm super excited. Again, like, there is man, I love this new space that I'm in. This clarity in terms of like what I want to do. And like, guys, don't conflate that with like, I know exactly what I need to do with this podcast. I know exactly like who I'm trying to reach. I do have a picture in mind in terms of the people that I'm trying to reach. I do have um certain like ideas floating in my head and certain targets. But um man, by no means do I have a full picture of this whole thing. And I like that. I like that because, as I said before, I'm stepping out in faith on this one, and I get to really sort of gamble on myself and be like, "Yo, let's figure it out as it goes." And yeah, that's where I'm at the moment. That's what I'm enjoying. I get to sit here, and actually, it's quite therapeutic because I get to talk about the stuff that's swirling in my head, the conversations that I've been having day in, day out. And guys, one thing I realized with this podcast is that like there are so many good conversations that are happening in my life. I got dope people in my life. Shout out to all my friends and people that are in my life, whether they're acquaintances, whether they're business related, work related, whatever it is. Um, I love the conversations I'm having because um, I wish there was like a mic constantly tapped to my shoulder or something like that, or like my chest, so I can like, so you guys can hear the conversation. And I bet you guys have the same thing. Like, there's so many dope conversations that people are having, and dope interactions, and I feel like we don't capture those enough. But yeah, today's episode, man, what do I want to talk about? What do I want to talk about? Um, guys, I think I've come up with a name. I think I've come up with a name, and um, hey, this is not like set in stone, but that thing literally hit me yesterday, and I think you guys can tell like this podcast is very much focused on identity, self discovery, um, really having the balls, for a lack of a better word, having the balls to find out who you are. So the name I've chosen, well, not the name, but like what I've come up with is chasing I.AM. So the way I figured it out is like it's gonna be chasing and then I.AM in brackets. Um, and here's what it means. all we're doing, I feel like that rings true in my life, and I've talked to a lot of other people. Um, all we do in life is getting closer to who we really are, um, and we hope that by the time our time ends, we hope that we figure that out. Um, and I think we don't love. I think we fear what we're gonna find on that journey. I think all my life, even to this point, I am still chasing who I am. Um, and to be able to say, I am dot, 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 or I am this person. Um, and one of the greatest, like, things I look forward to is for people to see and be like, Jez is really who he says he is. Um, and I don't really only have to hear that from my church friends or my family, or I the dopest thing would be for everyone to have the same picture of Jez. Like, Jez is no different with these people than with these people. That's the dopest thing. That's one of the coolest things I really want to achieve. Um, but here's where the title gets twofold, right? And again, like, I'm telling you guys, like, this is not a Christian podcast. Like, for me, chasing I.AM is twofold. I'm chasing me, and I'm chasing the one who is and always has been. Um, because the closer I'm getting to who I am, the closer I am getting to God, and that journey is as beautiful as it sounds, and as like I'm falling in love with God, and I'm getting to know Him. Man, there's a lot of things I don't like about this journey. Um, there's a lot of things I'm realizing about myself, um, that I genuinely don't like, um, and that's okay. That's absolutely fine. But I think you're starting to realize a lot of reasons why people don't want to go on this journey, myself included, is because we find a lot of things that we've tolerated for too long, and we don't really know why, because we don't know our identity. Um, and we keep going back and forth in terms of who we think we should be, right? And the first step to this is like, who are you currently, right? And for me, that's a scary thought, because I think about this, how I used to be, or how probably I still am, but I'm just getting better at managing and living above that person. Man, that was not a good person. And we deceive ourselves in telling ourselves that, like, I've come off the way I never used to be like this. Nah, 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 nah. You've always been that person. It's just that you had capacity for more, and you never truly explored what that looks like. So for me, this is really where it comes down to. Like, I am embarking on a journey where I feel like, people are gonna be like, "Yo, but that's not you, Jez," and I'll be like, "I know that's not me, but I want it to be. I definitely want it to be." And so sometimes we lack the conviction actually saying that in certain circles, not in every circle, but in certain circles. Um, and so yeah, I'm chasing I.AM is gonna be the name of the podcast. Um, and the beauty of it all, I can have somebody on this podcast who is not Christian, who's a non-believer, who has no interest in God, and they can still chase themselves and their identity, or whatever that is. And that's the beautiful part. Like I get to have people on this podcast who are not necessarily interested in being like, "Yo, Jez, I want to get to know God more." I mean, if that's the case, yo, let's do this together. Let's break bread and have this conversation. But the reality is, man, I am here to learn. I'm here to learn. And I'd love to impart wisdom when I can and if I can. Um, but this stage is about accountability. It's about vulnerability. It's about setting, having conversations and taking on things, um, that I can learn from other people. Because this is where we get it twisted as Christians. When we get saved, or if we're in a certain belief, We believe that all our knowledge and good wisdom and advice can come from only people that have the same walk as we do, and the same belief system as we do, and the same upbringing as we do, and the same religion as we do. And that's completely false. That's completely false. And so I love having people come on this podcast in the future and like bless us with their presence and their experiences. And I think we have to change sort of our viewpoint and perspective on this, because we're missing a whole lot of things that God has sort of put in our vicinity and our proximity, because we refuse to allow um, God to work through people that we don't deem as like worthy. And man, you're underestimating God. Um, and you're sort of putting him in a box. And for me, yeah, I feel like my experiences, one of the good things about the way I was raised and the experiences that I had um, in my younger years, um, is that I was able to be in different environments with different people from different backgrounds, like completely different, and sort of see the beauty in different. Um, and yeah, I love bringing that, having that experience and that skill in order to like adapt into into different spaces, and then bringing it back home. And that's what, listen, guys, this is one thing I've seen in the church, um, that we seem to not be able to wrap our heads around, is that we go out in the world, we go out in the world, and we gain all these skills and knowledge and relationships, and we have the ability to bring those things back into the church and then pour it into the next generation. But the church is so focused on, no, 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 don't go out there. Like, you have a talent for singing, nah, stay in the church and exercise your blessing and gift in the church. But sometimes God don't want that for everybody, right? Sometimes God wants you to go out in the world, gain skills, hone those skills and gifts, right? Perfect them, or I mean, near perfect. Bring them back and share it with the people that are coming up under you. And I've had so many conversations with like musicians and like, and even my boy Phil, because Phil, Phil will tell you all about that, right? Um, man, these guys have gifts and talents, and they've only been like improved on because they stepped out in the world, because there was a vacuum in the church, or the talent could only be cultivated so much, and because they've gone out in the world, and because they've gotten a lot of recognition, and they've mastered their skills, or they're in the process of mastering their skills, the church is recognizing that, and they're saying, "Yo, we want you to come back and help the youth, and we want you to come back and like sing on the Sabbath and lead the worship," and like, and it's like, that's unfortunate, because a lot of times these type of guys are being discouraged from making the moves that they want to make. But when people see that those same moves have yielded so much success and access, we want to now bring those things back into the church. Um, and it's unfortunate that we have that. So I hope that churches get better. I hope that leaders in the church are better about that, because we don't have to discourage, especially our young people, from going out in the world and you know adapting and learning and taking skills in, right? And I think it comes with the fact that we are just not good at um, teaching what it means to be living in the world but not of it. And one of the reasons why this podcast exists, um, I think there's people like myself out there who made a lot of mistakes, who've gone out there and lived a life that wasn't conducive to their growth. It diminished their integrity, you know, and they felt a lot of shame. But for some reason, God has kept them, and they've somehow always felt God's voice in the back of their minds. Or people have come in and out and sort of like talked about, man, I still want you to be with me, right? And so I see these young people and I see myself. And one of the great things about this podcast is that I can somewhat see the person I am today is the person I wish I had when I was 22, 21, 23. Not to say that like I was out there and like struggling and I was like begging for somebody to be, you know, showing me the ropes, because I was not interested. I was convinced that I had it all figured out. And I was in control of my life. Like if I want to stop, I can stop. But it was more so the case of like, I wish I would have had people around me that like showed me that the walk of God or the walk with God is not this like, hey, you give your life to Christ and now you're going to leave all these things behind. And if you don't, then you haven't experienced God. And hey, yo, you know what? This is one of the things where like I get very, very vexed. And it's like, and I've had this conversation with someone actually yesterday, and man, that conversation was dope. I wish that would have been a podcast episode. Ah, man. And that conversation was around, you know, coming as you are, like, and the somewhat story and narrative around there is like there is leaders or spiritual leaders out there that are sort of just like as Tim Ross would say, put Jesus glitter on everything, right? And basically just say, nah, you can come as you are. Don't worry about changing. Don't worry about, you know, having it all figured out. Just come, man. You can still live your life and everything. And that's false. Like, one thing you'll find in this podcast, we will not try to make it all inclusive and make everybody happy at the expense of biblical truth and obedience. We ain't gonna do that. But the reality is that like it's not so much about coming to church or coming to Christ or being in a community or wanting to discover God for yourself and having that all figured out. What you have to understand, though, is that once you take that journey, you won't stay the same. You just won't. And so I think it's not so much that like come as a clean, finished product and present yourself to the church or its people or God, and God will examine you and be like, yeah, that all checks out. Nah. Just be ready to change. Because if you consistently have that sort of like, or you're seeking that relationship with him, and you're out there and you're finding community, you're finding like-minded people, and they're pouring into you, and they're, you know, you'll start to be very uncomfortable in certain settings. You'll start being very, very, well, not judgmental, but you'll start feeling a certain way around certain conversations. You start feeling a certain way when it comes to certain music. And that's going to be the scary part. That's going to be the fear in chasing you. So, yeah, to become a wholly different person. Man, and I don't blame anyone that has doubts. Like, doubts are real. They're valid. They're valid because it means that there's something out there that is at work, that's at play, that's bigger than you. Because if you weren't doubting it, that means you were probably thinking to yourself that you managed to do it on your own. But if you're doubting it, you realize your own limitations, and you realize that I couldn't have possibly um, been the reason why this worked out. And so, yeah, you have this journey is going to be very interesting. And I hope that people have community. I hope that people have people around them that understand where they are in their journey and meet them where they are, because that's so critical. Um, we want everybody to sort of know the Bible in and out from Genesis to Revelation, and we want them to know everything about the gospel, and we want them to understand um, the sacrifice that Christ made, and we want them to know all of these things and all of these routines and how to pray and how to be obedient, and we want them to know that the moment they give their life to Christ. But the reality is that's when the journey starts, and that's something I'll say this: a lot of us Seventh Day Adventists, Ghanaians, we get baptized early, and as a result, a lot of these things we miss out on the essentials of what it means to give your life to Christ. A lot of us jump in it because we feel that because of our long years in the church from childhood, we think by the time we reach 15, 16, 17, 18, we've seen it all. We know what it's about. And this is not even just for like Seventh-day Adventists. This is for when you get baptized, that's the starting point where you have openly declared that you go against whatever the devil has for you. And then the attacks begin. And then you're like, yo, nah. I can't F with God anymore. Like I can't roll with God no more. And like I can't do this. And like, nah, this is not, man, this is what it's about. And so I want people to really understand the importance of making that declaration. It's not like you've done all the tests and the baptism is basically a graduation into, yep, you've seen it all through. Nah, that's the beginning. And so yeah, man, I would have loved for young people to just like take their time and understand that, like, and this is also a failure in terms of like how we present God and baptism, and we sort of use the whole thing of like get baptized before he comes, otherwise you won't make it. But what's the point of being baptized not fully understanding what's happening, what's your role to play, who God is, who the devil is, what his intentions are, what God's intentions are, and where you fit into all of that. So, yeah, that's my take on that. And so, yeah, that all of that is just to say that man, identity is important. Identity is so important, and I think the people that are my age, a lot of us, men and women, we've never done it. We've never done it, and we don't want to do it. But I've seen a shift in a lot of men, and that's kind of dope. I don't know where that's coming from. I don't know why that is now, but a lot of guys that I know, that's probably also my circle, but like there are guys out there starting to ask questions. And to me, that's a sign of there's a change on the horizon. And that's going to be the dopest thing ever, because, yo, these are not my words, but I wholeheartedly agree with them. When men, not black men, white men, whatever it is, men, men that get right, and men that are willing to say, you know what, I'm going to see this through about this journey. I'm going to get anchored. let's just not even to put God in this equation. Let's put in a set of rules, right? And boundaries that will allow me to flourish and to understand who I am at this current capacity, right? What are some of the things that are stopping me from being productive? What are some of the things that are stopping me from building positive relationships? What are some of the things that actually are adding to my misery, right? And for me, hey guys, I told you guys, I'll be your first case study in anything and what I'm talking about. For me, that's drinking. For me, that used to be partying. For me, that used to be sleeping with a bunch of girls, um, and not having any care for it, right? And so, man, you combine all those three, man, you got some crazy concoction there. But those are the things where I'm like, let's not even put God in this equation. If I don't have any boundaries around those things, those are the very things that are going to slow me down and eventually completely take me off track, which they have, right? And so it's like, think of it as an addict, right? I'm not saying I was an addict, but here's what I'm trying to say. Um, if you're trying to test the theory of whether something has an influence in your life, and it's sort of, there's a correlation or causality, um, you have to remove that very thing, right? You can't have it in the sense where, no, I only do it on the weekends, or only do it once a month, or only do it with these people, and I only do it in these amounts. That's not going to work. That's not going to yield any fruition, and that's not going to give you any knowledge in terms of what's triggering you. But you're going to have to remove yourself from certain things, and that sometimes includes people. Um, but you do. And once you do, you realize that, like, man, that thing had a grip on my life. Like, remove alcohol from your life for 30 days. Just to see. Hey, don't make it a spiritual thing. Don't make it a no, I need to do this in order to like get closer to God. Just do it. And see what you learn. The least you're gonna learn is probably, why couldn't I hold on to 30 days? Right? Or maybe that's the best case scenario. Who knows? Um, but you're gonna have to look at these things and be like, man, these things do play a part in my life. Way more than I want them to. And it's not to say, look, here's my take on alcohol and all of that. Like, there are occasions where I drink, but I've also realized that, like, when I do, I never feel great the day after. Um, it seems to slow me down. It affects my health way more significantly than it did back in the day. Um, yeah, and I genuinely don't like how I feel the next day or days. And so I'm glad I'm not living that life that I used to live like 5, 6, 7 years ago, because I can clearly see a change in just like environment, like that helped. But like, I realized that, like, drinking actually makes disturbs my or distorts my image of me. And um, I'm over here talking about chasing I.AM, and I'm putting something in my life that's basically a stumbling block. So here's where obedience comes in. Obedience tells me that, like, it is in your best interest, Jez, to put that to the side for as long, not for a time, for as long as you need, in order to fully understand who you are and where you want to go, who you want to become, and how that looks like to the outside world. And so, what does that mean? That means Jez can't be drinking. That's what that means. And so here's now what I have to do. Here's the next step. In what settings or in which scenarios do I end up facing alcohol or end up drinking? When I hang out with certain set of friends, when I am going somewhere, certain places that I go, like if I go Germany, if I go to the States, if I go to a bar, if I'm with, on holiday, like whatever, right? These are triggering things. Now, it's not to say that, just never go back to Germany and like never go back to the States and never go, but there are certain things where I'm going to be like, yeah, guys, I can't go there. And this is why it's so important that people need to start emphasizing community. Like the craziest part and the biggest lie us men tell ourselves is that like, oh, we're trying to get right and we're trying to get within God. I'm trying to get anchored and everything. Yeah, guys, I'm going to see you later. I'm going to have to do this on my own. Man, we've done that for so long, where we think God is going to give us all this revelation when we're in isolation. And there's a period of like, you need to be in prayer with God and you need to spend some time with him alone to get some clarification. But to discover and figure out who you are, you're going to figure that out in a vacuum. Yeah, man, get out of here with that. Seriously. Yeah, I listen, I'm not trying to bash anybody, but like, don't tell yourself that lie. Don't. It don't have to be 100 people. It don't have to be 150 people. It don't even have to be 10 people. But community, find those 2, 3, 4, 5 people. Find yourself a spiritual leader that you trust, that is anchored in God already, that may have years and years and years of experience ahead of you, right? And has your best interest at heart. And go to that person, submit to that person. We're going to talk about submission. That's going to be dope as well. But submit to that person, right? And take their advice and see how you fare in life. And I think that's so critical. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to do that, and we don't have any prerequisites. We don't have any qualifications or anything that allows us or gives us permission to say, if you follow our advice, like, you're gonna have a better life. That's not necessarily the case. But there are men and women out there that are stepping out on faith, and they're saying to themselves, you know what? I don't know whether I'm qualified, but I know I want to do this, and God is saying, it's all I need. That's all I need. And so, yeah, I do believe that we have to really learn how to check ourselves. And us men, we're bad at that. Yo, guys, we got to do better. We got to do better, because we can't keep walking around saying, "Oh man, this person, man, did this, man, I was trying, but then the situation kept coming back, man. I was on a path, like I was really like focused, and then I went here, and like, man, what are you watching every day, right? Who are you talking to every day? What music are you listening to every day? I ain't coming for anybody's taste. Like, listen, I still enjoy hip hop, and like, but I also as I'm going through this journey and I'm walking this walk, something triggers me when I listen to certain music, and it's like, it's not like guilt. It's not guilt in terms of like, ooh, I said I'm gonna be walking with God and I can't be listening to this music. No, but like, what am I telling my brain on a regular basis when I listen to certain music? Forget the beat. Just read the lyrics. And I struggle with that because, man, when I go to the gym, man, one thing about me is that when I'm in the gym, I can't get distracted. So when the headphones are on and the music is playing and I know what type of music it is, man, I'm all the way in the zone. But I'm also playing scenarios in my head, right? Like, while the songs are playing, I have these like would-be moments, these would-be scenarios, would-be life, and I'm living this life, and like, but what am I reinforcing in my mind, right? What idea, what kind of persona am I manifesting in my brain? And so you do that over time, and you start to see a bit of a distortion in your character. So I just think it's important for us guys, especially because the weight is on us. Um, the weight is definitely on us, and I think we are in a time of society where we want the playing field to be even. God didn't design it that way, though, and it's something I'm wrapping my brain around because we fear we fear responsibility and accountability because it is asking a lot. It is asking absolute. There's a lot of weight on men's shoulders, but God designed us that way, which is why the devil is trying to like distort that image of you, of who you are, right? Like, like, I don't want to get biblical, but I wish I could pull up the text, but I don't have it right now. But I think it's in Ephesians, but go read it and man, read about who you really are, how God sees you truly, right? Because if you think Christ came only just to save our lives from sin, man, you're not spending enough time in the Word. And so, remember, before we were ever made, there was tension, there was stuff going on, right? And so, yeah, don't think it's about you, and whatever you're going through, it's just you. Everything that we experience and we're going through, known to man, as Timber. Man, I know. You know what? I'm gonna manifest this right now. Yeah. I filled out that Google Doc form for the basement, man, and that was what, like 3-4 months ago, and I was just like, man, that's my spiritual leader at the moment. Um, and it's not so much about I need to be like him and I need to do exactly what he does. But I'm gonna tell you, if us men can get convicted in our identity the way he is, you know how many things we would avoid if men and women were chasing themselves and chasing their true selves, right? We wouldn't get in half the ish that we get into. We wouldn't entertain half the ish that we entertain. Um, and I just want to bring that energy. I want to cultivate that energy within me, but I also want to then open up the space for people here. Um, because when I see our young people and I see people my age refusing to heal from the church hurt and um, wanting to make a step back and be like, maybe I went wrong somewhere, breaks me because that was me for a long time, walking around blaming the way we were raised in the church, the way religion was brought to us, the way God was presented to us, and this like black or white approach of like, hey, if you sin, you out of here. Um, so I'm all about just changing that narrative. I'm all about making people like. I spoke to my friend Christian, like he was going to be on the podcast one day too. Um, we do our weekly and daily Bible study stuff whenever we can, really. You know, a lot of times we're just too busy, but like we get together 2-3 times a week, and we go through the Word. And one of the things that like I recently learned is that we tend, we tend to really distance our character a lot from God's. And I want y'all to get this, right? When you read the story of Noah and man, yo, Old Testament is kind of crazy. Just a side note, yeah. When y'all read it for the first time, that's a wild time. Um, but read it in any version you want. You King James version, New Living Translation, whatever floats your boat. Um, but read the passage about after Noah has been delivered and they uh, come out the ark, and the same time, and you see it again with Abraham. God God is depicted in a way where he's shown emotion, right? He's shown emotion. Um, he's he's sad. He remembers. Um, you know, he's angry. Um, he's disappointed. Um, he felt regret. Hey, if I think I'm lying, go read that. And for the longest time, we don't want to give these sort of labels to God because God is perfect and God is great and man, we are made in His likeness. I know we think of these things as like feelings that are associated with sin and weakness and evil, and so these things don't apply to God. But the reality is, we have a lot more in common with God in our nature than we think. And the beauty of that is that all of a sudden the Bible becomes way more realistic, right? That God that like we were presented with years and years ago that floats somewhere in the universe and like, you know, we can't, that man, get that out of your head. Read the Bible, see for yourself, and you start to realize that like, yes, I have these things in me, right? Um, but they're not because we're weak or because we're shaped in iniquity or we're sinful or whatever, right? Like a lot of it is also like, man, God felt things. To think that God doesn't have feelings negates the whole fact of us being made in His likeness. And so, yeah, man, I read the Bible these days. I'm like, wow, these characters, man. And I'm gonna tell you something. These characters, when I was reading them as a kid, I was like, nah, that's not real. I believed in God, whatever that belief was. I don't know what kind of belief that was. Where I believed in God, but I didn't believe in the Bible because the stories were so outrageous. I mean, so ludicrous. Like giants everywhere, burning bush, one man build an ark. I'm not. I'm touching on 3 books in the Bible. Like we aren't even crazy. So that's yo. I think. Hear me out on this one. Um, if you keep relying on your pastor or your church leaders or whoever is in charge of teaching the Bible to you, if you rely on their word alone, you're missing out. Not to say that people are out there trying to deceive you, but when you seek God, you also have to do your own research. You have to read things um, because at the end of the day, how will you ever know whether He speaks to you or not if you don't read His word? Um, so yeah, that man, I could talk about this all day. But yeah, this is where we are with this podcast, and I think, man, I love these. Like these are very self-reflective moments. I can't wait to share more. But I'm finding my voice, guys. So just give me some patience, some grace. Um, but I enjoy this. I enjoy this a lot, and um, yeah, chasing I.AM. And if you're chasing yourself, and if you want to come on here and we can chase together and we can sort of figure out where we're going. I'd love for you to be here. Like I think the first couple of episodes are going to be somewhat like this. Um, I'm gonna have some people on here, and you know, as time goes on, and you know, this gets more fleshed out, and you know, we got a bit more of a routine and all that stuff. Nothing will ever be scripted. Like I will never script anything because in real life I barely script anything. Um, but I do come into the space ready to dissect conversations I've had, ready to give people the space to be safe and to share. Um, and hopefully, God can use any of this stuff because we don't have that power. We don't have that type of reach in terms of we can't necessarily shove things down your throat and be like, "Yo, change." Don't work like that. So, a lot of some people that I've spoken to about this podcast have been, man, most people have been super supportive, super supportive. Um, Other people are like, you know, just another podcast, another man, another black man sitting there talking about what we all have to do, and you know, it's not for you. It's just not for you. And yeah, I don't know. I don't have the foresight to see that, oh, whatever I'm doing now is going to reach this person in 2026. And I don't have that foresight. I don't. Um, for all I know, that this podcast endeavor is going to enrich my own life, and it's going to do something in my life even further. I don't know, but I have to do it. So, man, we're gonna keep going with this. We're gonna keep going with this, and we're gonna try to build consistency. And I hope hope we're gonna keep this rocking, and we're gonna have some dope people in here. And hey, I hope this thing becomes a place where I get to work with people, where it's not just me sitting here. It can be other people rotating in and out. This is not a only SDA folks can be here and do that, and only Ghanaian folks can be here, only Africans, only black folks can be here. No, we don't do that here. Um, you and yeah, we just gonna keep creating a community, hopefully, you know, and we're gonna invite people, um, to take a risk and and gamble on themselves and be like, maybe I can step up into a space where I can be a leader, um, or I can serve. Both the same things. I mean, in order to lead, you have to serve, or in order to lead, you have to follow more so. And if you learn that early on, you'll go very far. Um, you know what I love the most is that before I come and do these things, there's somehow, some way, some person that I have a conversation with, and it validates why I want to do this. Don't get me wrong. I'm not over here being like, God told me to say this to you guys, and I didn't want to, but I have to. Nah, I want to do this. I definitely want to do this. But I also understand that it there's a validation that comes from the conversations that I have with people. There's a validation I've had over years that I have gifts for this. I'm confident in myself that God is asking me to step into a leadership role that I know I've always been able to take in. Um, but I just need to drop my perception of them, and to think that in order to take these roles on, I have to be and look and dress and speak a certain way. So, yeah, I am learning all these things, and I'm going against the grain, so to speak. That's all good. It's all good because this journey is don't know where I'm going, but I know I need to go on this journey. That's all I know. And man, yeah, I just love for you guys to see it. I love for you guys to go on your own journeys. I'd love to hear them. I know other people would love to. But yeah, until the next time, peace out.